Alright guys, such coming here and say, I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Lots of talk about Rostermania that might emerge after this tournament at Major 1. There's been a theory for a long time that after this tournament is over, multiple teams are going to be blowing up their rosters. Could some top teams get in the mix in that as well? But certainly some of the weaker teams, they will need to consider some serious moves. Lots of talk about what Surge need to do after this tournament is over. What about G2 as well? Benjay thinks that Skies could be on his way out of the team if they don't get a big weekend, and surely that will also be true for some of the top teams if they heavily underperform. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Lots to get into. Just to quickly start here, because there was that video that Thieves put out with HyDra, with Scrap, and with aBeZy in it. So now, where's Kenny, right? Is there some sort of an issue there internally? Doesn't seem like that's the case, but Kenny actually did feel the need to kind of respond because he put this little video together. And people were like, well, damn, why is Kenny on his own? Where are the other guys? Kenny says, look, I was late that day because of something, so I didn't get to record the video with them. So Kenny felt the need to respond and just say, look, there's nothing dodgy internally here. It's all fine. As a team, they're in a good spot. And Kenny did arrive onto our AR pyramid for the season. I think this is very, very difficult to do right now. I'm not a massive fan of the final version that we came up with here when we aggregated all of our voting. But it is very difficult to say, like, who is the best AR in the game right now? I think I still put Ghosty, even though the last couple of weeks haven't been as good as it was back in December and right at the start of January. But I think that on the balance of things, I couldn't really find anyone else to put instead of Ghosty. It doesn't feel like Merc should stay there after the last couple of weeks and OpTic's fall off. Paris are the #1 seed at the end of the day. Maybe you could argue Celium's there, but I think it's a little bit too early to say. I think you could also very well argue that Abuzah should be somewhere in that top 3. But I don't know exactly who I replace him for. Scrap, I think, is reasonably positioned at the moment. Sib, then we've got Rancor, Nasty, Exceed and Nero get onto the list quite high. I even think there's an argument that they could be a little bit higher than this, to be honest. But I guess for now, you don't want to make too many drastic changes initially, although Dashy has gone all the way down to the 5th tier behind Rancor, Nasty, Exceed and Nero, which on the recent couple of weeks, I guess you can understand. Still feel like I'd have Dashy a bit higher than this. But yeah, anyway, that's what we came up with. Enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below on what that looks like. But not many features on that list from some of the weaker teams in the league. This is, if I look at Major 1 standings, because that's still including some of the pre-season stuff, Vancouver Surge, 1 in 6, Cloud9, 1 in 6. Those are the teams that look by quite some way the weakest in the Pro League right now. Loads of teams at 5 and 2, 4 and 3, 3 and 4. Scrap says there's no skill gap. You could argue the competition's greater than it has been before. You could argue just the level of the skill in the Pro League has increased in recent years as well. Whatever your opinion on that is, if these teams have a tough time at the tournament, lots of them might need to consider changes. I think the Gentlemates will probably stick no matter what. I think that OpTic will stick no matter what. Almost every other team, there's a I think Ravens probably stick no matter what as well. But I think almost every other team has the possibility, right? Like, if FaZe have a really awful showing, they might think about bringing in a Lurqxx. If Thieves bomb out top 12, it may shake some of the confidence that they've built in recent weeks, even if it's, you know, not top 12, you know what I'm saying. Falcons, probably they will stick it out after the tournament anyway, given the way that things have gone recently. But you never really know, because the bracket is very competitive. The Falcons play OpTic in the first round. One of those guys immediately down to the losers bracket. Who knows what happens there? But there's some teams that we could say probably more likely than not will consider a change. Boston probably just stick it out anyway, knowing what they're up to. So maybe we can leave them to one side. And of course, Heretics don't have a million options, right? Like, if they're going to keep the Spanish thing going with Spanish players, what are you going to do? You can't bring ReeaL back. Trakes looks like he's doing at least a respectable enough job. They nearly made it to the winners bracket. But certainly Cloud9, certainly Surge, and then, you know, Toronto, of course, another key component here. Difficult to say what they would even consider doing, to be honest, with their roster. But if they have a really tough time, they were the 8th seed for the tournament, they might need to think about something as well. Again, a lot of this comes down to how things are internally in the team. If the team has belief and confidence that they can still make a comeback, make a run. And look, Toronto 3 and 4, but a 14 in 14 map count rally. It's not like they were terrible. Their map count's not much worse. than, you know, Thieves. I mean, Thieves were the 5th seed, feels like they were in a better spot, but it was only one difference in a series and one difference in a map. So it's not like they should be in a disastrous position, any of these teams, but if internally their chemistry is cooked because they're getting slammed more than they expect, that's when changes might well be necessary. Of course, the bottom tier teams are the easiest ones to comment on this for, because it would not be at all a surprise if Surge bomb out top 12, and when they do, or if they do, what are they going to do? Because they got rid of Lqgend, they brought in TJ Halley. Has it made much difference? I think they're probably a little bit better, but they're still 4 in 20 map count this stage, and if they get 3-0'd at the major, and they play the loser of Ravens and Thieves, so getting 3-0'd at the major is very probable, at least possible, they will get the Zoomer, right? They'll pick up the 4 in 23 map count for the stage. That is genuinely on the cards right now. K-Sun says you just got to blow it up, build around Abe. He's actually the kid on the team with some talent. Well, Eggs gave his perspective and said maybe you build around the fat one, as presumably as in you build around Tej. We'll see about that. Zoomer also talks about Gwinn. It's interesting for Gwinn because Gwinn joined this team, we thought, the rumour was, because he wanted to play with Lqgend. That was the discussion. Of course, Lqgend then gets dropped very shortly after joining the team. I don't know if Gwynn's opinion on that necessarily changed, but whatever the reality is, Gwynn's gone, and Zoomer's kind of saying, look, Gwynn's not stepping up, and that's the question with this team. Yeah, Gwynn's still pretty young into his career, obviously a talented player, was Rookie of the Year in his first year in Modern Warfare 3, but still, somebody on that Surge team needs to step up and be a bit of a leader, and right now it doesn't seem like it's happening, and they're getting slammed every week. I do also think on that Surge team there's a little bit of like, oh, well, you know, as long as I show that I'm pretty good compared to the rest of my boys, then I'll be the one that gets signed going forwards or gets to stay on the roster or keeps his name around the league. And that's kind of unfortunately inevitable when you're on a kind of disastrous team situation. So Zoomer talks a fair bit about Abe, some of the other players as well, what this Surge team needs to do going forward, and BenJ therefore also goes on to talk about the G2 roster and what that team might want to do.
Turn it off. He said it's an insta blow it up. All right, he said it's an insta blow up. They should be food poisoning their worst player as we speak. Minimum 2-man change, most likely 3. They need to open their tiny little checkbook and put together the best challenger players, and that's a fact.
Wait, what team is he talking about?
Vancouver Surge.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to respond, what a pleasure hearing from the sled.
Wait, what do you keep? Ask him what player you keep.
Yeah. Let me ask him.
Say, Pat, which player has
what
the keys?
player are you keeping? Pick one. Let's see who he keeps, man. Let's see who he keeps. He said the fat one. So I don't know what he...
Peach?
Yep, he said the fat one. That's what he said.
Oh, my God.
You gotta agree that I feel like if a player walks into a bad situation, you're just never gonna know how good they're gonna be. I think that happens to a lot of challenger players. It is the reality. Like, I think, for example, if I'm Vancouver, you have nothing to fucking lose with this roster, by the way. You have nothing to lose. Blow it the fuck up. Build around the young kid who has potential. Like Abe, right? Like, what? And Tej is good there. Obviously, he's a vet. Listen, I don't mean any disrespect to anyone here when I say this, but I'm just saying, dude, blow it the fuck up.
Blow it up.
It's not working. At least see if Abe is real. Build around the kid and see if there's something there. If it's not there, blow it the fuck up again. You have nothing to fucking lose.
Like, see if I'm true or wrong about this.
Go ahead.
Gwinn is a phenomenal player. Phenomenal. When it comes to like just talent alone, he's really good. But I don't know if he's really bringing to camp what like off besides for talent and gameplay. Like, what's he bringing to the camp? Like when the map's over, or like watching VOD, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, is he talking? Like, is he helping these guys play the game the right way? Like, is he being a good teammate, or is he just kind of going out there, calling out and going through the motions? Well, based from what I've heard, is that he kind of just like, he's just there. He just calls out, goes through the motions, and that's that. Like, that's kind of like what I heard.
Where have you heard that from? Because you're putting severe prop out there. So, do you actually have people in the camp telling you that shit?
Not in his camp. Not the camp currently right now. In past camps, like in the past, like his camps in the past. Not right now. I'm not talking to anybody right now. I'm talking about just camps in the past.
I think Gwinn is still that might force something quicker than we'd expect.
Boys,
Just throwing shit at the wall.
If GT don't get a gritty minimum top 6, Caesar's getting dropped. I will put 5 gifted on the line for that right now.
Damn, what
if he fries though and that happens?
Well, then
He's been frying.
then if he fries, then that's a different situation. But if what happened has been happening most of this
Damn,
stage so
BenJ.
far, where Caesar played really good against FaZe. I think that was probably his best series of split. But he's been mostly not a net positive in respawn. He's been pretty good in S&D.
Predicting these changes is very difficult because we don't know how to call the major by any means, and pretty much every single team, with the exception of Surge, even Cloud9, they took a lot of teams to Game 5. If they'd have won a lot of those Game 5s, it would have been a very different stage. Now, of course, it's far easier. You can't just say, oh, well, if we won all the Game 5s, we'd be the best team. It's like, it doesn't really work like that. But the point is, they at least showed they could take top teams to 5. I still don't think Cloud9 are anywhere near good enough right now. They will need to do, I think, something. But Surge are clearly nowhere near the game. But everyone else has at least had some impressive results, right? I mean, G2, they started the season well at that pre-season Monster Invitational, 75k, whatever. They came like 3rd there or something. Then they had a difficult start to the season, as we know, but they turned it around in the last couple of weekends. They've started to put some results together. They beat FaZe. Now, you can argue a lot of it's like Colossus merchants. They're winning a lot of Colossus because teams are giving it to them for some reason. So, sure. But also, they did beat FaZe in 4, and now we're still talking about, and FaZe arguably could be the best team. Like, they're certainly close to it. FaZe could well win this major tournament. It's definitely possible. And we're talking about, oh, maybe G2 would blow it up if they don't get top 6. And look, BenJ might not be wrong, right? I mean, it's just fascinating to see these online matches have thrown up a lot of interesting results where pretty much every team can come out of the online stint and say, well, you know, we either weren't that bad or we were pretty good. And there's some positives to take away. The question is, of course, for all of those teams, that what really matters is how they perform on LAN. And if G2 don't deliver on LAN, then, you know, you could make an argument to say, well, has Skies underperformed in some of the respawns? Is there a change to be considered there? Even if they're still putting in some good performances online. So, you know, G2 ended up, if I just go to Major 1, they ended up 3 and 4. They did squeak through to the winners bracket, as we know, after 3-0ing Toronto, right? So that's the other thing. They 3-1 FaZe, they 3-0'd Toronto. Yeah, that was online, so if LAN is different, then maybe BenJ has a point. But intrigued to your thoughts on all of that stuff in the comment section below. Just one final thing I wanted to go through here. Study put together top 5 of various categories of all time in no order. So, you know, I think the no order thing is always a bit of a cop-out, but I do understand why it's done. I guess the interesting point always for these top 5 is like, okay, well, who misses out as a result? So top 5 SMGs of all time, he's gone Scump, Simp, Shotzzy, aBeZy, and Apathy. That's, you know, that's the setup. I think it's nice to see Apathy getting his credit here. I also think the order that he's done for these is pretty reasonable, to be honest. Could you put somebody else in instead, right? Like, could Huke get onto this list? Possibly. But Apathy is also a 2-time world champion. Could you throw maybe HyDra onto the lists? Probably a little bit too early, I would say, for that. He also puts together top 5 ARs of all time. So just to note, Karma here, Crim6 considered a flex in his analysis. This is his order, not, well, his no order. Cell, Clay, Formal, Dashy, Octane. Again, I think those are probably the right 5, although, yeah, I actually agree with Momobro. I've said this before. I think I have Slasher over Octane just, but that is probably controversial. But I think definitely, I think Clay is number 1. You could argue Formal, but I think Clay, his peak in Advanced Warfare was similar to Formal's peak in many respects. Did it for longer, more championships. I think it's probably Clay, Formal, Dashy, Cell, Slasher, Octane, something like that. This then is just the final one. Top 5 flexes in no order. Of course, Crim, Karma, they're going to be right up here. Aches and Cap, of course, going to be in the mix. And then Kenny, right, the 5th man. And people will be like, oh, damn, Kenny shouldn't be there. But to be honest, this is undisputed in my opinion. Like, in terms of flexible players in COD history, Kenny's done it on the sub, he's done it on the AR, you know, multiple world champion. To be honest, I think this is a pretty clear-cut top 5, to be honest. Maybe you guys disagree, but intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.